Hello, welcome back. This is Jeff Byers, and this is Annie 255, and we are in Module 6, and we're talking about the effects, and we're going to go through shatter effects today. Alright, so I created this sheet. I'm going to call it glass. I've got a kind of a glass shader on it. I used a blend and made it a little bit transparent, as you can see right in through here. You can see through it a little bit. And then when you shine the light, if you move that camera around, you'll see that it reflects the scene pretty good and the light. Alright, so I just have a regular ground that we might use as a rigid body dynamic simulation after we get the glass all shattered. So just to kind of remind you guys that Maya, when you think about shattering and destruction, the effects, the shatter effects, does a good job for what it is. It's free. Again, you got to think about all this. That's why they have plugins, and plugins are much more realistic because the R&D can specifically focus on one thing. Now you think about all the things that Maya can do, and it's pretty robust. I mean, really. And so if you own Maya, you can pretty much get away with doing a lot of stuff in Maya. But then there are specialty areas like destruction that you're going to have to find a system that is faster, that can do more, in a larger scale. Maya just can't do that. The shatter effects they're not robust enough. The engine's not fast enough to be able to do that. It's the same thing with cloth. Even though Maya has a great cloth system, and if you get really, really good at it, it still can't do what Marvelous Designer can do, or Cycloth, or any other clothing fabric simulation out there, because these guys can dedicate everything, all their resources, into one thing. So just remember that. Even though Maya can't maybe do the more realistic effects, but man, is it good if you know how to wield the sword. It's just not fast enough for production, but they still use these effects, and they still work really well with stylistic scenes, okay? Like the fire, the clothing, and the cloth. They're used in production, but not at the level that you see in like Marvel movies, and high intensity visual effects like that. So it just won't work. So let me show you what is out there right now. The best of the best. We'll start with the lower one. Pull it down for Maya. This is a European company, so it's in euros. I don't quote me on this, but I think it's around, it's 270 euros, so I'm thinking it's around 320 or something. The conversion is something like that, maybe 300, 320. Anyway, you can check it out yourself. I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but this does a really good job, and it makes your simulations look a little more lifelike. And it has a jaggy fragments attribute to it that is really good. And you guys can check out some of the really cool things. I don't know if they have any community download support products. You can check it out yourself. I don't see any videos in here. And I'm not sure how many studios use this one. So you can check it out yourself. You can download it, try it out for free. I think for 30 days. And it's a Maya plugin, so go ahead and check it out, and see what you can do with it. Okay, so pull it down for a Maya plugin. It's really, really good. Now there's one that I know that the Marvel's using and the really top-end studios are using. It's called Fracture FX Demolition Tools, and it's running at $500, which is really good. But the thing is, for a student to go out and buy that, it's insane, because I'm not sure if unless you're doing work, and if you're using Maya, you can't really do that and make money, because Maya is free, because because of you're using it for education. You're not using it to make money. So if you're making money, you have to buy the real version, commercial version of Maya, which can cost a lot of money. I think it's $199 a month for the full version. And of course, you can buy the light version of it per month, but it's expensive. I have a full version of Maya for commercial use, but then on top of that, I got to think about, okay, so I'm paying that, and then I got to pay the $500. Is it worth it? If I do a lot of destruction in that, it's a specialty area for me. I want to get into that. Then I would definitely buy this. Now you can go on and on about buying stuff, okay, like buying all these plugins to make Maya really robust. So you could buy the Fracture FX, you could buy the Crowd Simulator tool, you could buy the V-Ray, and I think it's the Phoenix FD for the fluid effects. I mean, you can buy all those plugins for Maya. Now, if you're going to do all that, and you're going to get into production, you're going to get into actually producing and creating very realistic scenes, tornadoes and cloud effects, and I would get into Houdini, because that is the tool for the industry, Houdini. So check that out. If you're really wanting to get into VFX and creating and making money doing it, you're probably going to end up working in Houdini anyway sometime, because it is absolutely incredibly spectacular when it comes to VFX. That's what it's known for the visual effects and destruction and tornadoes and really cool stuff like that. You'll see a lot of production houses that use Houdini, or that want you to know how to use Houdini. Okay, so just with that said, let's move on to what is Shatter, what can we do in Maya realistically, right? So in here now, we're gonna shatter this piece of glass. Okay, now it took a long time. It took about 10 minutes to do that. I'm not gonna sit here and wait for it, but I'm gonna show you how I got started. Okay, so how do you set your scene up? You're just going to have a flat plane for the glass. Let's say we have a pane of glass that needs to be shattered, and we need to then add a rigid body dynamic system for it falling to the ground. Okay, so fairly straightforward, but just takes a long time. Again, Maya is just not fast enough if you're going to use this in production. But something small like this, one single pane of glass, then we're good to go. We're okay. So let's go ahead, and how do you do this? All right, so go ahead, and if you want to follow along, I'll show you how I got the scene. Basically just a cube, flatten it out, change the color, and then I added a Lambert to that and a green color, and then I've got glass, and I did a blend so it would reflect the scene a little bit more, and added some attributes, specular attributes, and then reflection attributes, so you can see that it reflects. So decent, and you can see kind of through it. Transparency, turn that down about, I don't know, 0.35 or something like that. But that's here nor there. Let's go ahead and get started. Let's go ahead and select both of those. So this is 48 by 48, I think. Let's take a look at the plane. Yeah, it's 40 by 40. So I basically just doubled it. 40 by 40, and then this is just a cube. Alright, so 45 by 40. Now the higher resolution you go, the longer it will take to shatter, to simulate. Now the nice thing about this, though, anything that you create with Shatter will render in Arnold, will render in V-Ray, will render in any suite that rendering suite you want to use. It's not like Particles, where some render engines don't support it. Shatter doesn't use particles. It's just you're breaking these pieces up, so it's just geometry. So you can render it in anything. All right. So keep that in mind. That's probably why I like it so much. All right. So the next thing you do is you got to clear everything out. For any simulation, you have to center pivot, delete by type history, and freeze transformations. Get all of these transformations out. Otherwise, it won't work at all. Just remember that. As a rule of thumb. Okay, so just select everything, center pivot, delete by type history, and freeze transformations. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead, once that's all settled, Sorry for the phone ringing. And then we're going to do here is we're going to go in and shatter the glass. Okay, so to do this, I've had a lot of students ask me, but first of all, I'll show you how to do it. You have to go into vertex mode and pick where you want the shatter to shatter from. From the center, did a softball hit the center of it? Was it a bullet? Where did that hit? So you got to find out where you want to start. Okay, and what'll happen is it'll take that point and then shatter from that point. Okay, and you can do it anywhere you want. So I'm going to go ahead and do kind of off center. That's a little more realistic than just doing it in the center. So let's do an off center shatter, something around here maybe. And you're set up to go. That's all you have to do. Okay, and then the machine will do the rest. So I'm going to go in here, hold down the space bar, go to effects, and go into shatter. And once I do that, I'm going to go over to the side here. I'm going to start with crack shatter. And I'm setting up the shatter count to 20, crack length to 200. Okay, first of all, the count will tell you how many pieces it'll break it up into. So I'm going to do 20. And then the crack length is you have to have it long enough to be able to go across all the way. So I had to set it to 200. Okay. Jagginess is how jaggy the pieces will look. Okay. So jagginess value with this, jagginess basically applies to solid shatter and crack shatter effects. That's this one. Specifies the unevenness of the shattered edges. A value of 0 creates smooth edges. A value of 1 creates jagged edges. Okay. Now at 0, I left it at 0 because I wanted to not take hours and hours to shatter. It could, if you take jagginess, then it'll take a little more time. So I did basically smooth, meaning straight edges. Okay. Now depending on the glass, you guys know that if there's tempered glass, it breaks up into small little cubes. That's safety, for safety reasons. Well, sometimes we have windows, old windows, that don't break that way. They break up in big, long shards. So I don't want the jagginess on. So I'm going to keep it down to 0. Do I want to extrude the shards? Yes. Now this is going to give me a pretty thick piece of glass. So it's set at 0, but right now I'm gonna do 0.15. Okay, I've already done the simulation, and I had it at 0.25, and you'll see that result, the 0.25. But the 0.15 should be a little bit thinner for you guys. Okay, you can try that. That'll look more like glass. The other one looks like bulletproof glass. It's like really thick, almost like 2 inches thick. So you can do it like 0.15. Okay. Alright, so post-operation, we're going to keep it at shapes. Okay, that's easier. And then we're going to triangulate the surface to give it more jagginess. Okay, to help with that, to find faster ways to go down the line, and it actually makes it a little bit faster. You want to keep the original surface, sure. Nothing will happen, meaning if you do delete, it'll delete the original. If you hide it, it'll hide the original. Just click on nothing. Link the shards to what? If you have rigid bodies that you want to link it to, you can click on that, but I'm going to just keep it simple. And then what you do is just click on create. Now, I've already done it, so I'm not going to create again. So I'm going to close that and show you what happened. Okay. So I'm going to go to File, Open Scene. Let's go into the crack shatter pieces together, and this is what it will look like when it's all done. There we go. And so that's what it ended up looking like when it was all finished. And if you're going to do a rigid body dynamics where you want that to fall and hit the ground, you have to kind of get rid of the original. So there's the original. Okay, there's the original, which is good because we can reuse it again if we want to, create some different glass effects if we want. Otherwise, I'm just going to put it in a layer and just forget about it for now. And so what you have to do now for rigid bodies is if I were to take all of these and go in here and do solvers and go to active rigid body, you can do that. Okay, and so each piece will have its own rigid body. Okay, it should have its own rigid body, otherwise you'll have to do it one at a time. I think it did it for everything. It's like you can see that little spot right there at the bottom. That's a rigid body. That's what that looks like. So all of them are looks like it did it. And then we'll click on that, and then we're going to do field solvers, passive rigid body. Okay, then we're going to take this, select all of them, and go to effects, fields, and go to gravity. There we go. And so now we take a look at this. We can play it, and it might take a long time and may not play at all. This is pretty crazy. And I got a fast machine, so you can see why this can be a real problem in production, especially if you have millions of these pieces. So that can be a serious issue with everything. And I'm already going to tell you that some pieces will interpenetrate and will give me a yellow warning, and then I'll have to stop the simulation. So with that said, I'm going to pause the simulation while this takes so we can see what happens. Okay, so I'm back now. It's hit the ground and all kinds of warnings are coming up, and then they just exploded, and you can see what happened. Now they're gone. So this is what happens when you keep them together right after you do a shatter. It has no idea when it's falling and it hits the ground. They interpenetrate each other, so you need to separate them so this doesn't happen. So it's good for you to see that this happened like this, because I've done this 100 times before and I knew it was going to happen, but I wanted you to see it in person. So go ahead and stop the video, and we'll get back to the simulation and show you how to fix all that. Alright, so now that we got that completely shattered, I had to pull the pieces out one by one. Okay, so what you have to do, and I'm not going to take the time to do that and show you, I just went ahead and got that set up, and you can see all the shards that are all separated. Okay, so that's what I have now completed. All the shards are separated away from each other. They cannot be touching each other, so I might have to move this one out a little bit more. They cannot touch. We go to the top view and make sure nothing is touching. That's super important. They cannot be touching, even the smallest pieces that you see here. And that's where some of the issues that you'll run into. Just got to keep everything separated, and once that's done, then you're good to go. And we got that one kind of breaking into that one. Okay, so we'll give that a try. That looks pretty good, so I'm going to go ahead and save that out. Okay, so next thing I'm going to do is just real quick add the solvers to it, create active rigid body, and this is going to be a passive rigid body, the floor, and then on the shards we're going to go ahead and do a gravity on that. Here we go. And now, because that's passive, this is rigid, they should all fall and simulate properly. Okay, so it didn't really do what I kind of wanted it to do. It simulated, but it simulated all together as one piece. Okay, so last thing we're going to do is we're going to move them randomly up just a little bit, up and down, kind of give it some momentum, something a little bit different, so they can break apart. And they're not all going to follow the same rate, and that helps keep it a little bit looking a little bit nicer. And we'll just break this up a little bit more so we'll have a better simulation. Alright, so that looks pretty good. Okay, let's go ahead and move everything up a little bit higher. There we go, like that. And there might be even times where you might want to rotate just a little bit. And that helps with simulation too, so they're not all falling flat. Just kind of gives it a better dynamic or a better simulation. Make sure you don't have any of them going through each other. Flat objects tend to fall flat and just stay flat. So adding a little rotation to the pieces will really help the simulation out and give it a little more dynamic look and feel. There we go. So if you have a simulation where the pieces are just laying flat and they're bouncing around or doing anything, that can be changed. Okay, so now let's go ahead and see what happens with all the pieces. There we go. Much nicer simulation. It looks much more realistic, and the pieces are flying around like they should. There we go. That looks pretty good, actually. Okay. Let's make that a little bit bigger. There we go. We have to simulate it again. Much nicer. That looks pretty good, actually. Like that. Let's go with a longer simulation. Let's go to 200 instead of 120. There we go. Okay, so this is a great way to make a debris field. After it kind of falls, everything falls down. You have to give it time to relax and fall down. And it's nice. You still have things moving. Go to the side view. You can kind of see what's happening here with the pieces. You got some pieces falling through. That happens. It's not perfect. And then you got some pieces that are still kind of not settled yet. So let's give it to something like 300 real quick. We'll do a simulation of 300. There we go. Okay, let it fall and just kind of let it settle. Just needs some time to settle a little bit. Okay, so that's good. We got one piece that's kind of standing up on its own. Not sure why it's not falling over. But let's go ahead and we can fix that. So when you get all the pieces done, what you'll do is you'll select everything. Hold the control key down. And then you're going to want to go to, let's see, create. Where is that at? Edit, bake. Nope. Edit keys. There it is. Bake simulation. Edit keys. Bake simulation. Bake simulation. Okay, that should do it. Okay, great. Everything's done. Alright, so now what we want to do is have those selected again and go in here and do Edit, Delete All by Type, and then Rigid Bodies, and that'll take all the rigid bodies off. Now, the simulation, you're free to play it. There we go. And this, in particular, just kind of look at this piece here. That probably should fall down right there. I'm going to go ahead, let that fall. Just delete that part. and fall. Okay. It's probably too fast. It's okay. You get the idea. I'm not gonna have you waste any more of your time. But that's the idea. So you get everything done. You may just want to have, you don't want to have any animation at all and you just want to show the pile. That's great. You can just kind of finesse things a little bit the way you want to, as far as that goes. Get the shards set up the way you want it. And there you go. There you have broken glass on a floor. Okay? Now just imagine trying to do this with, I think I did 20 pieces. It took a long time. Just imagine trying to do that with 30 or 40,000 pieces. You can't do that in Maya, so that's just impossible. So, but you can do small little debris fields like this. You can add fields to it to make it look a little more explosive. So when it hits the ground, you can animate a radial field and push the pieces all over the place. And that can be really dynamic too as well. So there's a lot of really cool things you can do. Okay? Alright, so that's it. So that's the simulation for Shatter. Now that you know how to do a simulation with the pieces, now I'm just going to show you the rest of the shatters, and this will go pretty quick. Okay, we're back with a different scene. I created the same floor plane, and then I went ahead and created a sphere. And the sphere has 40 by 40 subdivisions, so if you want to add that, you can. And you want to go ahead and delete the history. You want to go ahead and center pivot, delete the history, and then freeze transformations before you do this. If you create, how do I want to put this, original pieces, like you extrude pieces, they may not work. They're considered too hard to simulate, so it does best with primitives when you simulate. So if you want to do a wine bottle falling to the ground, you can do that. But if you create it and it considers it too difficult to shatter, you might have to find a different shatter solution. But a lot of times I'll tell students that it's easy enough to just shatter a ball and make it look like it's pieces of a wine glass. You'd never know, because when you shatter a wine glass to a point where you can't really recognize it anyway, so it's just pieces on the floor. So anyway, I'll show you how to do the rest of the shatters. Okay, so make sure you delete by type history, freeze transformations, center pivot everything, and then go in here and we're going to go ahead and shatter this. So let's go to FX and we're going to go to shatter, go into the option box, and we're going to go to solid shatter. Okay, think of a object that is solid all the way through, like a crystal ball. So let's go ahead and shatter this at, this may take some time. Let's just shatter it at 10 so it doesn't take so much time. 20 or higher is better, but let's just do 20 for now. Jagginess, let's keep it at 0. Seed value at 0. Keep it at shapes. And triangulate surface, yes. You want to apply an interior material, yes. Original surface, nothing. Linked shards, nope. And we're good to go. Go ahead and click on create. And that was fairly quick. So there's our shatter, and you can see the pieces that it created. Again, if you do a dynamic simulation, they have to be away from each other. Okay. Okay. And the originals here, let's go ahead and put that in hide that in a layer real quick so you can see everything. And these are one of my favorite types of shatters, is the solid shatter. It's pretty cool. And then the other one is absolutely my favorite. This is one of my favorites here. Alright, so there we go. There are the pieces. I don't know if I got all of them. I don't know if I did or not, but that's it. So you can do simulations on these two as well. Okay, that's pretty cool. So that's the solid shatter. Okay, very cool. And then let's go back and open another scene. So let's start with another one. Okay, same thing. you start with a sphere, and we're going to go into effects and shatter, and we're going to go into the attributes and click on surface shatter. Surface shatter, we can extrude the shards to give it thickness, and you'll be using this the most probably to break objects with. Okay, so we'll do a 0.15. We don't want a really huge thickness there. Triangulate surface, smooth shards, yes, everything looks good. And we'll just keep the shard count to 5. And this should go fast. There we go. And now you get to see what they look like. There you go. And let's do the original. Put that in a layer so you can see. So that's pretty cool. There we go. Okay, so those are the pieces that we have. Okay, so that's basically the shatter tool, and just have fun with it, experiment, and do some fun stuff with it. And I'm sure you can find a lot of uses for the shatter tool. All right, I'll see you in the next video.